Hey, what's up, guys? Let's try this again. I'm trying to get Madeline into the chat. We're going to be talking about decide what to teach when you're teaching a jiu-jitsu class. Hey,
Hey,
second time's the charm. What's up?
what's up, Josh? How are you?
Good. I was just telling all my fans out there, that we're going to be talking about tonight is running a jiu-jitsu gym, specifically a smaller jiu-jitsu gym, and how to decide what to teach. When you're teaching classes, because both you and I teach a lot of classes now. So, yeah, I'll just
For
give you
sure.
a proper introduction for people that may not know. This is Madeline Hughes. She's a jiu-jitsu brown belt. She's trained jiu-jitsu for over 10 years, medaled in IBJJF, ADCC competitions. She's now the co-owner of West River Jiu-Jitsu in PEI. Um, you're a registered nurse. I stole all this information from the two Jiu-Jitera's podcast, so thanks to them
Okay, yeah.
for an awesome intro. But, yeah, tell people a little bit more about yourself, whatever you'd like to share.
Sure. Yeah, I am a registered nurse. I've migrated out of acute care nursing and instruction in the last couple of years and started my own business in the wellness industry, and then also opened up my own jiu-jitsu school here last January. So pretty fresh off the grounds, just within the community that I live in here. So we're situated out of the Bonjour Community Center, just a small kind of area, and really focusing on community engagement, building kind of support systems through jiu-jitsu, and really using jiu-jitsu as a tool for personal development. So that's kind of the focus of my gym, and we're just kind of learning day by day here. So it's going great so far.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm in a, similar situation. I'm in a pretty small town in Wellington, Nova Scotia.
Yeah,
When I looked up, I don't know if this is true, but in Bonshaw, it said the population was 219 people. Is that true?
probably. It's a pretty small community, but there's a provincial park here. We're right on a river, so we do get a lot of visitors here. There's a lot of mountain biking trails, hiking trails around, and a lot of people do access the river. So we're sort of pulling from the Cornwall community of Cornwall and Haven. There's quite a few people, and anyone that lives in a rural area, they do usually travel to do their activities. So we got people coming from like Cornwall, that side of town. And yeah, it's great. It's growing every day.
Yeah, that's amazing. And probably the most common question that I got when I put out questions was, what inspired you to open your own gym? So I'll let you go first, but yeah, just share kind of what inspired you to open West River Jiu Jitsu.
Sure. I started training about 10 years ago. I was with Wolf Run MMA, trained Muay Thai and Jiu Jitsu for quite a few years, and then started to focus more on just competing in Jiu Jitsu. And then a group of us wanted to open a jiu-jitsu school that was strictly jiu-jitsu, focusing only on jiu-jitsu and more the competitive aspect of that. So we opened Charlottetown BJJ. I was one of the founding members of the gym there. Similar story to yours as well. But as sort of the years went by, I was teaching primarily like the children's program there, teaching some adult classes as well. And then just really saw a need within my community for that like personal development side and to sort of access the children that are within the community. Our school was downtown Charlottetown. So it was a sort of a travel concern for me as well, and wanted to really bring jiu-jitsu into the community and start to do things with a little bit of a different focus and really bringing in that element community to support for people and really making jiu-jitsu more accessible to more people was kind of my goal when I started out. So then here we are. It all kind of unfolded quite quickly as I started to look around for a spot and get the ball rolling. And now I'm like 8-9 months in. It's growing, and we have a little team. We're getting ready for our second competition as a gym here, coming up in October for the East Coast Fighting Championship. So East Coast Grappling in Moncton. So we're getting ready for that. It's been fun.
Nice. Yeah, it's crazy how similar that story is to mine too, because like you said, I've trained for, well, almost 20 years now, but
Yeah.
I trained for 10 years or so at Titans, which is more of like an MMA focused gym. But a
Yeah.
group of jiu-jitsu focused people wanted to have just a jiu-jitsu gym, so that became Halifax Jiu-Jitsu. And I was there for a number of years. And then, yeah, just like what you said about kind of wanting to have something in your local community and travel being a challenge, and just wanting to offer jiu-jitsu to more people. And I also had kids at this time too. And people may not know that you have a pretty big family. I think you have four kids, right?
I have 3 children, yeah. So we've my middle son, he's 21. He trains MMA as well, so he has to actually at this gym. He's kind of dropping it all around, and he's helping out with some of the instruction here. He runs a boxing program, a youth boxing program through West River Jiu-Jitsu as well. So yeah, he's on board helping out a lot, and yeah, everyone's kind of pitching in and helping out for sure.
Yeah, and my kids are quite a bit younger. Like I have a 3-year-old and a soon to be 2-year old. So yeah, it's just
Yeah,
like kind of some crazy life changes
yeah,
happening. Like just wanting to kind of do something more for myself as well. And yeah, so I started Presley Jiu Jitsu, and this is out of my own gym, my own house. I've
yeah.
converted my garage into a Jiu Jitsu kind of studio, if you will. So yeah, another question I guess is maybe sharing some of the wins and some of the challenges having a smaller gym, because both you and I have had the experience of training at bigger gyms, so we kind of know what those gyms are like. So what would you say have been some challenges or some differences, like kind of with like a bigger gym versus a smaller gym?
Definitely. Well, I think at a bigger gym, there's strength in numbers, and as well, we ran it there as a not-for-profit model, and there were 6 of us initially that were, coaching, and all of the jobs are kind of spread apart. And now it's just me running this gym now. So it's like there's a lot of work to be done. And I think anyone that started their own business or is doing whatever, it's like you start a business because you want to bring what you love to more people, but you don't always understand how much work is actually in the background to like getting a
Yeah,
facility, running a facility, and like all of the back end work that has to get done for a business. So that's something that I was aware of because I had previously started my own business and was running that. So I learned a lot of skills through that, and that gave me a lot of confidence to start this business. But it has definitely been a lot of work and a big balancing act. I have found that the teaching load to be like a lot, and it is different. Like now moving out into my own gym, like you have quite a bit more experience than I do at jiu-jitsu. I've been training for about 10 years. But I've sort of now in a position where I'm not getting coached a lot. Like I get to Charlottetown BJJ, I try to get there once a week to continue training and attending classes. I just did a little jiu-jitsu road trip myself, gym, and come and train there. And I hit a few gyms. I went to Synergy in Fredericton. I came to see you guys. As well, and then was down in Antigonish at Woodshop Jiu-Jitsu with my friends Haley and Dylan, training for a couple of days. So it was nice to go around and just attend class and train and not kind of be the coach again. I love my role as a coach here, but it is something that you're trying to always balance out with like learning and like teaching yourself and trying to continue to build your own skills as well. So that's something that I found a little bit challenging to balance, especially with the workload and a busy family and all of those things on top of that. But I'm getting some strategies in place here to get some instruction going, and I always like to bring in lots of guest instructors to my gym as well. So different people that are visiting from other provinces, I'll say, yeah, come and train, and would you like to teach a class? And they're always like, yeah, sure. Like usually people are excited to get to do that, especially if they don't do a lot of teaching at their gym. So I've had lots of guest instructors in, which we always really enjoy. As far as some of the wins, just watching the growth in the community, like I have a pretty robust children's program here. My background is in pediatric nursing and obstetrics. I'm quite familiar through my work with lots of neurodivergent kind of coaching styles, learning styles, because of my background. So I think I offer a pretty tailored approach to teaching because of my background. And so I'm sure it's the same with you guys in your children's program. I see it's just getting up and running again in September. But a lot of kids that do come to the jiu-jitsu, usually you're talking to the parents and they do have, some difficulties with focusing, some hyperactivity. Sometimes kids are on the spectrum, and like having a good knowledge base in that background, I think makes my classes really adaptable and suitable for children. And we have a lot of really good communication between the parents as well, of like why things are run the way that they're run here, and kind of how I do things. And we're seeing students that are really having a lot of success in the jiu-jitsu program, and the parents really are quite surprised by that. And they're finding the effects of them attending the jiu-jitsu classes and having the success here and building those kind of strategies and things that they're learning through jiu-jitsu are actually transforming into their home life and their school life or whatever else is going on in their life. It was funny when I got back from my little trip, just had taken the week off, and when I came back, pretty much all of the kids that have been actively training through the summer were back, and the parents were like, thank God you're back, kind of thing. Like it was kind of a hard week without being able to send the kids to jiu-jitsu. So they knew I needed the break, but everyone was appreciative that I was back, and the kids were all, there was cards waiting for me and little gifts here for me from the kids. So, not only do the parents enjoy it, but the kids genuinely really love coming to jiu-jitsu, and they really do get a lot out of it. So it's very fulfilling in that way. It's a lot of energy for sure, but it's very rewarding.
Yeah, no, and I would kind of, echo a lot of the same thoughts. I feel a lot of the same way. And yeah, it's great, especially with the kids, seeing them build confidence and become
Yeah.
more comfortable and get out of their comfort zone in jiu-jitsu is really awesome. So yeah, we had talked briefly on your jiu-jitsu vacation. You stopped at my,
Yes.
and we had talked about kind of, how do you decide what to teach when you're teaching classes? Because I think you had mentioned you teach like 9 or 10 classes a week now.
Yeah, quite a few between the children's and the adult classes. Yeah, I teach 2 yoga classes here during the week too, so I spend lots of time at the gym for sure. And I do my best to spend some time curriculum planning and looking ahead at that. But a lot of how I'm selecting what to teach is honestly like watching the kids and how they're rolling, and the adults as well. I'm still sort of following the model of like looking for gaps in people's games and then focusing there. I mean, I've been teaching for quite a while, so I'm pretty comfortable in the teaching role, but it's just like, how do you build your own curriculum in a new gym, like starting everybody from scratch kind of thing. So it was interesting. We had our first children's competition at Summerside MMA at Jason Sago's gym, and we had quite a few, I think 6 of our kids went up and competed and did quite well. And it was like, whoa, in the short amount of time to see, like it was pretty rewarding and fulfilling to see that some the stress and the experience of competing really well, which is really important to me as well, almost more so than how well they perform in their matches. There was a real team focus within them and things like that. So that was super rewarding to see. But mostly, I changed over my class structure for my Saturday mornings here. I have 2 children's groups, so 4 to 8 year olds and then 9 to 14 year olds. And over the summer, the numbers are always a little bit lower. I think in every gym over the summer, I combined the 2 classes and made an open mat for all the kids to kind of come together. So we have sort of the first part of the class, they're doing their jiu-jitsu games, the skill building games that we have, doing competitions, and then the last really able to observe a lot of the rolling and sort of seeing common mistakes or common like gaps in their games. And that's kind of what I've been building my curriculum for the fall and leading up into our competition that we're training for is sort of how I've been doing it. But I'm really interested to hear. I know our brains definitely don't work the same way, and we approach things in a different way. And you're always so good. And I always say, I wish I could just borrow your Presley's brain and just use it and just download some of that information so that I could have it. But
That'd be a cool
yeah,
try.
I'm interested to hear what your strategies are.
Yeah, no, it's something I think about like a lot, pretty much every day. So like, I mean, obviously I have a lot of my own personal knowledge, and I really like what you said about watching your own students, because that's a great starting point. Like if you
Yeah.
don't know what to teach, like watch some of your own students roll, because immediately you're going to see holes in their game where like, okay, they should be doing this instead of this, or okay, they need to work on this. But yeah, I've watched a lot of the instructionals too. Like I'm not up to date on the most recent stuff. I've seen a lot of like Danaher and Gordon Ryan, and
Yeah.
it's cool to see kind of some of the similarities. And Danaher obviously likes talking about jiu-jitsu a lot, and he has shared a couple times that he kind of has 5 major systems that he teaches, and he doesn't really go outside of that. And if I can remember all of them, I think it's armbar, kimura, triangles, front headlock, and leg locks. So those would be like kind of the 5 pillars of jiu-jitsu, or whatever you
Right.
want to call them. So most of the time I think about that and try to kind of focus on one of those areas. And I do try to focus on it for like usually a week at a time. I think that's a good amount of time. Previously I had tried to do like a month at a time, but I feel like it just gets a little too boring for people. Like I did a month of mount escapes before, and
Oh wow.
I think people were ready to quit.
Yeah. Was anyone getting stuck in bottom mount though after that month?
You'd be surprised how good people's escapes get after just drilling it for like 5 or 6 classes. So I feel like a week is a good amount of time. Like honestly, you probably could do a little bit more, but I like to kind of just build on things. So do like a week of half guard, do a week of front headlock, do a week of back attacks, try to do things that kind of flow together. But
Yeah.
I do definitely allow some room to freestyle a little bit, because obviously CJI happened on the weekend, so there's going to be some cool moves that happen in that. So I
Yeah.
like to stay up to date on the more recent stuff too. So kind of the way I look at it right now is the classes throughout the week, I keep like a theme. Like I'll do like front headlocks or arm bars or kimuras or back attacks. And then on the weekends, I kind of like just freestyle it a little bit more. And I'll be like, okay, here's something cool that I saw, or something cool someone showed me, or something that's probably a little bit more unrelated to what we did during the week.
Right.
but yeah, I feel like kind of sticking to those five main positions, like, and you can do that like top or bottom arm bars. You could do that, like starting on top or starting from the guard. And I feel like another good teaching tool is like kind of thinking about whatever position that you're doing, back, mount, whatever. Like, what are like one or two of the most important moves that you would show someone? Like, if someone was brand new and you had to
Yeah,
show them an attack from mount, like, what would be the move that you would show them? Like, everyone might say something different. Like, for someone that's big and strong, they might say like, "Oh, arm triangle. You got to do the arm triangle." Someone else might say the arm bar. Someone else might say Americana. So I feel like most coaches kind of stick to like what they're naturally good at a little bit
yeah,
too. So yeah, I feel like kind of trying to have a smaller number of techniques. Like, I don't teach like a million different things. Like, people probably know like, oh, if we're doing this position, he's probably going to show this. Like,
right,
I show the rear naked choke a lot. Like, I've probably shown that more than any other class. But every time I show it, there's always little details that people
for sure.
get right. So it's like, no, you got to put your elbow further in, or you got to grab your bicep, not your elbow. Just like, there's always little things that you can fix. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it, and like kind of weak blocks and like positions and just kind of general things like that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And I've done some work with Haley and Dylan Beaton from Woodshop Jiu Jitsu. We've talked a lot about curriculum planning and how they kind of structure their gym. They're both teaching and offsetting each other, so they really help. But they do the same kind of idea where they teach the same thing all week and kind of build from it from there. And it does help with the curriculum and with like feeling like every time you come to a class, you have to teach something different. And I've started also incorporating in like my small kids class. It's really the same lesson that I'm doing usually through the two children's classes. The small kids, they don't do a submission. So usually when we do the older kids class, it's the same position or same technique, but I'm adding in kind of an entry to a submission or starting to look at a submission. And then a lot of times with the adults, kind of building off of that as well. And it's interesting. I was just teaching last night about rear naked choke, and it's like no matter how many times you teach it, there's always different things that come up. There's always like your technique is always changing a little bit, and there's so many details. Like you have to. Jiu-jitsu requires so much repetition to really learn and become efficient at things.
Yeah,
So I like that philosophy that you have where you're like, because I think especially when I was like a blue belt moving into purple belt, I was really felt overwhelmed with like the vastness of how many jiu-jitsu techniques there were, and I was kind of getting lost in trying to be good at everything. And then it was really like with talking with my coach Lance Campbell from Charlottetown Jiu-Jitsu that it was kind of like came up with this plan of like really need to focus on what you're good at, you know what I mean, and what's naturally works for you. And then when I was able to like narrow down my focus, I felt like my jiu-jitsu improved quite a bit. And I find that with my gym here, I use that philosophy a lot. I don't want to teach like all of these different submissions that you can really never get to unless you can control a position or have quite a game to be able to get to that point. So there's not much point for me like spending time with a lot of these kind of eccentric submissions that you're never really going to get to anyway. So we do really focus a lot on the fundamentals. The other thing that happens for me a lot here is because and it's just building, is that we have a lot of new members like dropping in kind of thing, or visitors coming. So sometimes you do have to tailor your class to like who shows up, you
totally.
know. I find that too. So you do have to be quite adaptable, I find, but I like that plan that you have for keeping the same game plan for a week or more.
Yeah, and you do got to be adaptable. That's a good point. Like, sometimes I'll kind of have two classes planned,
Yep.
because like you said, depending on who shows up, I want the class to be accessible for everyone. So I don't want to show a technique that I know would require flexibility that someone doesn't have, or just like body capabilities that someone doesn't have. So yeah, that is something that's a good point that I don't hear people talk about. Is I kind of have like a backup class sometimes. It's like,
That's a
okay,
good idea.
you know,
Yeah. I
like,
mean, we've been training a long time. Like, obviously, you always have stuff in your hat that you can kind of pull out and teach. Sometimes I've even used the method of just being like a Q&A class. Like, I have a couple of open mats. I love open mats. I've always learned a ton from open mats myself. A lot of my game that I've collected over the years has been from open mats and just working with different people. So I really like that setup as well. Another thing that I find, though, is if someone will just ask a question from here, and then it sort of takes you on a tangent down one road, and you kind of like develop your class just kind of in the moment, which I like. Something else that I find I have to pay attention to is like what's going on with the children, especially the children's classes. Anyone that teaches children's jiu-jitsu, it's not an easy task. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of dynamic skills to be able to run a successful children's program.
yes,
Um, but I do find like you do have to have an awareness. Like I find when the kids come in, I always require the children to check in themselves to the class. not their parents kind of thing. So they come in and you have kind of a moment to chat with the kids, like, hey, how are you? How was your day? What's kind of going on? And you get a read for how the kids are doing. Another thing that where I find you're getting a chance to check in with the kids is usually they're needing help tying their belts. So you get another kind of couple of a moment to really interact with a child and like see how they're kind of doing. Like I remember one day last year before the end of the school year, it was a super rainy day and they didn't go outside for lunch or recess. And I had I think it was a scissor sweep that I had planned for the class, and they're coming in and they're just running wild before the class started. And I was just like, there's absolutely no way I'm doing a scissor sweep today with these kids. Like, they don't have the focus. They weren't outside. So it was like more of a play-based class. We did a lot more games. We did sumo circle. Like, I have a lot of game-based learning that I do in the children's program, which I also really like bringing into the adult program as well. It always goes over well when we bring the kids' games into the adult class. And there's tons of good learning that comes from that. Haley and Dylan, like I said, from Antigonish, we talk a lot, we share a lot of our games and our strategies that we use to build learning and different forms of learning, because you don't really want to be putting on the same classes all the time, the same kind of routine. And now that we're kind of focusing on this competition come up, the fitness level has to come up a little bit too for everybody, myself included. So we've been, stepping it up a little bit in the cardio and harder warm-ups, sort of wrestling warm-ups, things like that. So it's always changing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would agree with the games too. I feel like anytime I do a jiu-jitsu related game, people usually really like it, kind of like a positional,
Yep,
whatever it is. And it's good to just switch it up, like you said. Just people. I feel like when I started teaching, I had this fear of I didn't want to teach the same thing. Like, I had to have every class be different, than the last. But now when I look at teaching, I'm like, to me that seems so backwards, because people need more time practicing the move. So when we were doing front headlock for the last handful of classes, every time I'd start out with just you have the front headlock, and then switch and go to the turtle, you're getting ready to go to the back, and I would just get them to drill that.
yeah,
And then we did an escape from the front headlock, because I like looking at offense and defense.
yes,
So we did kind of more of a wrestling based escape. And then kind of the freestyling aspect, someone said well, could you sit back to guard when you're in this front headlock position? I was like, yeah, you could just sit back to half guard, get the underhook. So then I was like, let's just drill that, because people seemed like they were interested when I was showing it. So I was like, I didn't have that planned in the class, but I'm like, that's a move people when I'm showing it, when someone asked, they seemed like they were curious about it. So I was like, okay, we'll drill this next. So yeah, I think having a plan, but being willing to, adapt, yeah, is really important when you're teaching jiu-jitsu, just to keep it fun and keep
absolutely.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think coming up to our competition season here, I'm kind of stealing from Danaher here with really working on working from bad positions. So we started our rounds last night. We did shorter rounds and started with someone on your back with the seatbelt in. So it's I like those two, starting from bottom mount, and I make the kids do that. And I'm like, as frustrated as you might be feeling right now, if you're wanting to compete, you have to know you're going to be in frustrating situations. You're going to be in high pressure situations, and you need to be able to get out. If you can get out from bottom of mount of Gabe, one of our stronger students, you're not going to have a problem at the tournament. So don't get frustrated. This is for you. This is for your learning. And they're like, okay, yeah, I can do it. I'm like, even if you're just working on breathing through the round and not getting frustrated, not getting overwhelmed, then that's a win kind of thing. And then you build from there. So it's not always about the technique, especially at my gym. I really focus on the strategies for staying in it, being a good teammate, having a good mental attitude about it, and really fostering and building up the resilience in the team, which I think is really important too. So there's a lot that goes into it for sure. I think that a lot of people probably have an idea of I'd love to have a jiu-jitsu gym, but you don't really realize how much actually goes into it.
100%, yeah. And I like what you said about just kind of building the mental toughness and that aspect of it that's really underrated with those positional battles too. And it's good for, I find, in the adult class for beginners too, because if you start out with that back control game, they're already starting in a good position. They feel like, oh, yeah, I can kind of do this just by holding on. Even if they don't get a submission, they feel like they're winning a little bit. Even though you start them in a good position, you can kind of see it in their face, oh, okay, I feel like I'm getting it. So it's when you just get them to roll, they just get smashed, obviously. They're beginners, right? So I feel like it's good. That's a good way to build confidence too from the offensive side. And then, from the defensive side, you're in a bad position anyway. So I feel like it doesn't hurt the ego as much when you're getting tapped out from someone already on your back, because well, they already started there. They're about 80% of the way from getting a submission, so it's really not that big of a
exactly.
deal.
And it's so difficult when you're starting out. Like you're learning these new techniques, but you never get an opportunity to use them because you can't hold any position. You can't like get to anywhere that you're actually going to use it. So it is nice to mix it up a little bit and give people an actual chance, especially when you're a smaller gym. You know, it is difficult when you know the training partners are fairly limited. And then yeah, so the hierarchy kind of stays the same until new people come. And I'm always like, guys, when the new guys come, you guys are going to see how much you actually know. Like you know so much. Like I know with rolling with me, it maybe doesn't feel like that all the time, but you know they do know. So that's part of the natural growth of the gym. And I remember these growing pains, like you know when we started Charlottetown BJJ, and you'd have those smaller classes with a few members there, but you know slowly but surely, and I'm sure we'll kind of hit a number here soon where it starts to grow from there, and we don't have to worry about it too much. We had lots of interest, and just like the sport of jiu-jitsu overall is growing so rapidly and it's becoming so mainstream that you know I find it's the growth is definitely happening, and it's great. A lot of my adult members that I have here are parents of the children that came in the children's program, so that's kind of where I'm putting a lot of my energy, is focusing on building that kids program, and then the adult program just seems to be naturally building from there, which is really interesting. So
Is there like one coach or someone that you've like borrowed specifically from, or someone that you really enjoy their style of coaching, or anyone like that?
yeah, I think I have my own because I have like a teaching background. I think my actual teaching style is pretty unique to me. I'm really big on the philosophy of like safe training for everybody at the gym. I think I'm one of the only female-owned gyms like in the Maritimes. There's a few partnerships with people, but I really am adamant that everyone is training in a way that's like very flowy and very like not just smashing people and holding them down and letting people move. So I really advocate for that a lot in my gym. So I find even when new members start, and everyone is like that in the beginning, like that spazzy new white belt kind of thing, but I really do foster the efficiency of jiu-jitsu a lot. And I really talk about like, if you're just holding me down, there's 80% of my game that you're never going to see. You know what I mean? And so it's not a benefit to you to not let me move kind of thing. Even though I might submit you 3 or 4 times or whatever, it's much better for you to see much more jujitsu than to just make sure you hold me down and you don't get submitted. You know, because I'm not a big person. I'm older athlete as well, so it is challenging to be running your own gym and having like anyone new guys coming in, and it's like, oh, you don't really have that like mat enforcer kind of there. And so we're trying to get away from that philosophy of like that's how that's kind of handled, because I didn't ever find that was very successful. I felt that just really breeded a lot more of that sort of type of sparring, that type of rolling, and which is quite dangerous. And for me, when I have someone that's you know starting out, we really do encourage efficiency and like only gripping as much as you need to get the job done, not gripping to bruise the person, you know what I mean, and not overdoing, managing your weight. I talk about it a ton in the kids program as well. If you're a size difference, we actually go up to their backs and like turn down their dial a little bit. Okay, got to turn down your power because you're with this guy, you know, he's like 4 years younger than you and quite smaller, and they do. And if I do find that they're stepping it up or they're not doing it, it's like it's easy. I go over to their back and I turn down the dial and like, okay, yeah, they get it right away. And it's not like in a, you know, they're not in trouble by any means, but they just kind of have to be reminded at times. And I find that it's fostered such a good environment here. And like even the kids, like the way they look out for the little kids and will show the moves, and they're not just trying to smash them all the time. Because I always tell them like if everybody's not growing, if both people in the match are not having, you know, a beneficial, positive experience, then it's not really good jujitsu. You should be able to train everybody. Like, you know, we rolled together last week, Josh, and like you could submit me 12 times if you wanted to. Like, I know that, but you don't, because you want to see what I can do. I want to see you let me work my game a little bit. And I think that's such a more beneficial way to train for everybody, other than, you know, just getting submitted 17 times. Like, that's not really beneficial. It's like, save that for the
I would
competition.
agree. I would agree. I feel like kind of getting to see more of the person's game. To me, that's like the fun part of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there's times to like, you know, roll harder and kind of lock it down in position, and like especially with the competition, sure, if you're trying to push someone in like a competition style role. But yeah, I would agree. For most of like the sparring rounds that I have, I think people would say they kind of see more of like a flowy, dynamic role from me, because I just like
I love that.
that's my style, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of a few more like kind of fan submitted questions. I thought this was
Oh,
how do you stay motivated when there's only 1 or 2 people in class? Like this would be the challenge of a smaller gym owner. How do you
yeah.
stay motivated when that happens?
It happens for sure, and like that adaptability piece comes in there. And usually, when it's happened to me a few times, where it's like one or two people in the class, and I'm kind of like, okay, where you're getting stuck? Where's the problems? Let's you have like basically a private class here. So lucky you, kind of thing. And then we
Yeah.
say like, let's start problem solving and go from there. And it's actually like they kind of feel like they get a big benefit out of that because they're able to add in a lot of content into one class, whereas when it's a full class you kind of can't get through as much curriculum, and it's very individual to that person. So it is a benefit for sure, but it is always nice to have rolling training partners because that's kind of the way it goes. But I'll just usually turn it into kind of like a private, or be a little bit more specific as to what the needs are of that particular student.
100%. I think that's the best way to go. And it used to drive me crazy when I used to train at bigger gyms, and we would go to class, and people would be like, "Where is this person? Where is that person? Where is everyone?" I'm just like, "Who cares? The people that are here are here. Let's just
Here.
focus on
Yeah.
who's here and train."
Yeah.
So to me, yeah, that's never been a huge problem because I'm obviously I love jujitsu. I'm completely obsessed. So
Yeah.
um, for me, I just do it the same as you. If this is one person, like, all right, well, you have a chance to have a private lesson. We can really make
Exactly.
progress here. Just same thing with one or two people. Like, a lot of the classes that I had over the summer were probably in like kind of a 6 to 8 people range. But to me, like, that's great because you're going to
Yeah.
progress so much faster when you like have a coach that's right there being able to work with you. And I can roll with basically everyone in every single class. So something
Exactly.
that's probably unique to a lot of gyms too, where bigger gyms, you wouldn't get to roll with your coach every class, but that's something
Right.
that my students get pretty much every single class.
Yeah. Same here. Yeah. I find that too. I mean, it does, like, from an energy perspective, like it does. Sometimes it is a bit daunting when you're teaching, 3 classes a night and there's 2 kids and 3 kids. That was why I combined my Saturday class to get everybody together, working together. And the kids absolutely love it. They were like, please don't take away the open mat on Saturdays. We want to keep that style. And so I am for the next little bit because it's worked really, really well. But I do find that it is sometimes if you're thinking like, I have a career outside of my gym. I've never had a difficult time getting motivated to come to jiu-jitsu. I'm like you, I'm obsessed with jiu-jitsu. I've loved it since my very first class. It's never felt like a job or a chore or like going to the gym for me. Like it's like, oh, I get to go. It's really helped me to line up all the rest of the practices in my life, like my diet, my sleep, everything. I have to keep dialed in so that I can train. And so it
Yeah.
really has helped me to keep kind of everything on the rails, I find, like, really. So I've never had that problem with the motivation, but it can be daunting when you have a couple of people in your class. But usually, although I might feel that at the beginning, like, oh my gosh, I have to spend all this energy for 1 or 2 people, but usually it's a very rewarding experience when you do have that one-to-one time with the client or with your member. And I do remember like being at bigger classes at bigger gyms and going through the technique part of the class, and maybe the instructor can't even really get around to everybody to see if you're drilling it right. And a lot of times, like, I don't have a long attention span, so I wouldn't be able to just drill out the same thing for 15 minutes or whatever. And so I would find that really challenging. So I actually like the smaller class structure because we're all kind of working together. You're seeing everything that's going on. There's no one just kind of chatting in the corner, not drilling or not working. And you're able to really get a read on like when they're kind of done with the drilling, especially for the kids classes, I find, and then pull it back together and move on. And you're able to keep a read of the class, like, as a whole, I find a little bit better. So I actually don't mind the small. Like my average class size is like 6 to 8 for adults, and like the kids classes can get up to about 12. And I do love the energy of teaching a bigger class. It almost seems like it would be harder to teach more kids, but I don't find it that way at all. I find when it's a big group, you can really kind of keep things running smoothly, more so than when it's a few kids where especially when they're really comfortable with you and they kind of think, oh, well, we don't really have to do, but they do.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
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 It's a big difference. Like I remember I went to Legion Jiu-Jitsu,
Oh,
Keenan
yeah.
Cornelius. Yeah, that's when it first opened in 2020, like in January 2020. And it was huge, like massive classes, like, I don't know, maybe 50 people in the class.
Wow.
But you don't get the level of instruction you would at a smaller gym because, there's a lot of people. So he's just walking by, just kind of checking on people, but he's got a camera there too. So he's also kind of making videos. And I actually specifically remember, like, I flew there from Canada. Like, I'm a big
Mm-hmm.
Keenan fan at the time. Like, we're drilling some like guard pass, and then he walks by. I'm like, hey, is this how you do it? And he's just like, yep, and just keeps walking by. I was
Yeah.
just like, I
A
feel
bit
like I wasted my
disappointing.
money coming here.
Yeah,
So I was like, I don't want people ever to feel like that in one of my classes. So
for
I feel
sure.
like, I want to give them the attention. So if they're trying to ask me something or work on something, like I'm really trying to focus on that and like to their individual needs and stuff. So yeah, I think that's one thing that gets overlooked in bigger gyms is that like you may just see the move, the instructor drill it, but you're not actually going to get to have him work with you on the finer movement. You may if you're lucky, but there's a lot of instances where that may not happen.
For sure. And a lot of people don't really learn well in that style. They actually need you to go around and help them kind of in a different way. I find that's something that in a bigger gym where, like you said, they're not coming around and getting that individual attention. And the worst thing you want is someone drilling something the wrong way, or doing it wrong. And they're just like, both partners think that's the right way. And then that's kind of how they're doing it. Like, so when a smaller gym, you can really notice those things and kind of like nip it in the bud early on and not let things get too far. Yeah. And when you asked about, look up to as a coach, I definitely try to watch a lot of instructionals from the women. Like Fiona just has a new database where she's putting her instructionals out and kind of a curriculum. I like the way that's set up. I've been looking into subscribing to that. I'm a Jiu-Jitsu ex-girl. I've been a Keenan fan since early on. I like a lot of his instructionals. Hanato Canuto was one instructionals that I really liked. I love his style. I like passing like him. I do a lot of that outside passing that I got from him. Brianna St. Marie, though, is probably the one that I follow the most. I taught a seminar with the women that fight open mat back in June, and I kind of pulled from her closed guard series because I use that system quite a lot. So I'm always going to go to the girls first to look to try to use their content, and I find like their moves obviously work really well for me, and as a smaller person it just tends to work better. But yeah, those are kind of my resources that I use as far as looking for curriculum and looking back through videos to try to like supplement my teaching for sure.
Nice. Just one or two questions left. I thought this was an interesting one. How to give constructive feedback to the spazzy new guy without it sounding too harsh?
Sure. I've had this conversation so many times, and there's been people visiting my gym, and I'll get into this rant. Actually, if you really want a long-form discussion of this, the podcast that I did with the two jiu-jitsu-tieras, there's a whole podcast about this that I've talked about, and I can talk all day about it. But usually when someone comes in, I'll kind of say beforehand, like I used to deal with this a lot when I was training. I mostly trained no-gi, so a lot of times at Charlottetown, like when visitors would come in and you didn't really know what belt people were, I always like, over the years and after all of these injuries, I did develop some anxiety around training and new training partners and who am I going to be able to train with and like safe training space, all of that kind of stuff. But I started to just ask the questions first and like develop a language around like how to communicate this, because no one wants to smash a girl. No one wants to smash a smaller person usually. If they do, they usually don't last too long in jiu-jitsu. But a lot of people just really don't know how to communicate around that and what is actually needed. So communication is obviously the number one thing. So whenever that would happen to me before and I didn't know like what belt someone was or how experienced they were, and even if they were a colored belt, that didn't necessarily mean that they were going to be like a flowy round that was like beneficial to me and that I would be like safe. So I started to say like, yeah, I'm training for a fight or I have a competition coming up, or like, I'd always say like, I prefer to roll like super flowy. I have a fast kind of aggressive style. So sometimes it does amp things up a little bit, but it is hard. And I find people lose sight of that because I'm like a faster grappler and I like to scramble and I like to use a lot of different positions. I find that when that's not someone's style and they're a bigger, stronger grappler, they'll tend to use that more and it amps it up a little bit. So sometimes I do have to back off a little bit and go a little bit slower. But communication is the key. I usually identify that at first, like, that try to be nice and flowy. But when people start out, I'm usually like, just show them. So when they grip my wrist and they're holding so tight that they're leaving indents, I'm like, okay, so that's more energy than you need to use. And you're going to be gassed in no time. If you're going to go that hard, you're going to be tired. You can see that I'm not even breathing heavily and you are winded and gasping for air. So like there's a mismatch of energy output here and you need to like kind of try to match your training partner. For sure. I'm always talking about like keeping the pressure off. You only need to hold people as tight as to get the job done, not to try to kill them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you're just pinning someone down and you're not moving and you're just kind of staring and then having that weird eye contact moment of like nothing's happening, then obviously you need to change things up, you need to move. If I can't move at all, one of my strategies that I use, and it's funny, it's come up a few times, I've mentioned this in the podcast, and Haley taught me this move, and like her and I and Charlene, we've trained together for years, and we always talked about like when you get in that situation where someone is just pinning you and you can't move and they're just putting so much pressure and there's really nothing else you can do, we call it the dead fish, and you just kind of go limp underneath them until they start to realize like, oh, something's wrong, and they'll kind of like look at you or like make a little bit of space, and then you can kind of make a move. But it also points out like yeah, what do you expect me to do there? You know?
Right.
So, but it's always a delicate dance between the training partners, but I think communication is key. So I'll just talk a lot about it, like, oh, a little less pressure, you got to, go a little bit more flowy, those kind of things. And it's not like, you're not getting mad at the person, you're just kind of helping them. Like, because usually people are like appreciative of like, you know, how to do that. If I do have someone like now that would be like, maybe, 60, 80 pounds bigger than me, I'll be like, okay, yeah, sure, we can roll, but do you want to work on your guard? Like you play
Yeah.
off your back, and I'm a pretty good guard passer, so like it's going to benefit you to work on my guard passing. It's not really going to benefit for you to hold me down in bottom side control or half guard, whatever. Like neither of us are learning anything new, and it sucks. Like it's no fun for me, and like I'm probably not going to want to roll with you again. So it's way better for you to like work on your guard retention with me than it would be for you to like play the top game. So when you can point it out and it's like, this is way more benefit for you to play this game with me instead of that, then they're usually like, yeah, actually you're right.
Yeah.
And also people have to be okay with getting tapped by a smaller person and by a woman. Like
Right.
it should happen. If you're not, then you're probably going way too hard. And people are like,
Yes.
they'll always use that excuse. Well, you're going to get me basically, or you're going to tap me. And I'm like, well, yeah, I should. I've been training for 10 years.
Right.
So like, of course, that's the way. It's like, you're not going to win. Like, it's okay. And if you're not allowing them to move at all and have any success, then it's like, yeah, you're probably not learning very much at all. And I usually address it from that standpoint of efficiency and learning is what your goal is, not to not get tapped. So
Right.
I think it's better to tap 7 times in a round and let someone move and let them use their game than to hold somebody still and maybe tap once or just be like gritting your teeth watching the clock. That's I think a way better method for improving at jiu-jitsu than just not getting tapped.
Yeah, and I get what you said too about the whole energy thing. And I remember specifically one time when I was teaching a beginner's class and I was rolling with the guy. And just like you said, he was having the death grip I had against those guys. He was just holding my wrist so tight. And I was like, dude, like, you just got to relax. And he was like, I am relaxed. I'm like, no, you're not. like you're holding me like you're holding on the side of a building and try not to fall off. Like, just relax. So I feel like people in their head, they think like, well, I am going slow, but it's like they don't realize like how much energy and intensity that they're using. And honestly, I feel like it's something that takes a few classes because we've all seen people that like they gas out so bad in their first class because like they use all of their energy in the first 30 seconds or first minute.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. But if that same person does like 10 classes, like I guarantee by the 10th class, their cardio is going to be like leaps and bounds better from when they started because they start to understand the energy efficiency thing. And like, okay, I have to go 100% and jack my heart rate up right at the start because then I'm going to gas out and be ready to die,
Yeah.
So I feel like that energy efficiency thing, it's just something that you have to kind of learn a lot through experience. But yeah, telling people to try to slow down, I feel like is probably one of the best ways to get that message across early on.
I think that too, like just pausing in the match and being like, just see what you're doing here. This is a problem because, and they're like, oh, okay, thank you, and move forward. But a lot of times I think what happens, and I think like the old school like mentality to deal with that was to like match them and just kill them, just crush them. And like, I don't really have that option. I'm not a big person. Like, yeah, I have a lot of skill, but it doesn't matter. It's like a 200-pound man, you know what I mean? The skill kind of goes out the window if they just want to hold you down. But I find that if you can pause and show them and like say, this is why this isn't the best idea for right here. Yeah, you're holding me down, but you're not going to be able to hold Presley. You're not going to be able to like, hold down a guy that's closer to your size. I use the analogy a lot because I was a pediatric nurse that when we have to do a procedure on a child and you have to hold them for it for their safety, the harder you hold them, the more they're going to fight. So you always use the least amount of resistance as possible. I'm sure that's something that's taught in law enforcement as well. So it's the same theory in jiu-jitsu. It's like you only use as much force to get the job done. And it's like, why are you holding that grip? What are you using that for? And like, why? I'm not even trying to break it. So why are you squeezing it like a death grip? You know what I mean? It's like efficiency, like you're gonna run out of energy. So that's always how I approach it. And it typically goes really well. The other thing that I find is really important is that if that's the philosophy in your gym, you need to be backed up by your members, by your training partners, by the other coaches, the staff. That it does need to be like the whole, like everybody needs to be kind of on the same page with that in order for the culture of the gym to stay really healthy, in my opinion. So I find that I'm always backed up by my members, and like when someone new starts, they're kind of like, they don't just go hard with them and like try to do that smash for smash kind of dynamic, because it just leads to injuries and people not ever coming back, and likely will leads to a lot of use of AEDs in gyms that probably doesn't need to get used.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And like, it's interesting. Like I've had a lot of the same thoughts. Like And like, yeah, I'm a competitive black belt, and like I definitely can beat, probably 90% of the people that I'm gonna train with that coming off the street. But then I also have to think about, like, do I want the gym to have that mentality of like,
Yeah,
okay, that comes in, that's like really tough, and they're really trying to beat me, and then I really beat the shit out of them. Like, that's not really the atmosphere that I want in my
no,
gym. I feel like that just makes it really intense, and it's going to make some people uncomfortable. And it's like, I would rather it just kind of be like a fun jiu-jitsu environment.
for sure.
So yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting challenge. I was like, I feel like it's getting more away from that because jiu-jitsu is kind of becoming more its own thing, and it's still obviously associated with the UFC and with fighting and stuff. But I feel like it kind of used to be a bigger problem, especially training in an MMA gym where people would come in and
Yeah,
it would feel like it was like a fight, and it's
yeah,
like, yeah, I can win in those situations, but I don't want to have to feel like I'm in a crazy fight, especially when
exactly.
I'm teaching 10 classes a week. Like, like if I'm doing that on Monday, what am I going to be feeling like on Wednesday or Thursday, right?
For sure. Yeah.
So
There's
yeah, it's
father
just like,
times coming after us all, over time as you get to be an older grappler, like you do really have to be cautious. You do have to focus on your recovery and like you don't want to be putting yourself in a position where you have these like mounting injuries that are kind of stacking on each other because eventually you become very limited in what you can do. And when this becomes your livelihood, you really have to pay attention to that. If we like, and I say that I've said that to training partners or people that have been in my gym and they're going too hard. I'm like, if you hurt me, there's no gym. Like all these kids aren't coming to class. Like, so do you want to be that guy? Like, come on, so, but it's the truth. Like, like it's not something, if you're training in that way, you're taking away from your training partner. You have to treat your membership. You have to treat your gym like a family or like a team. And if everyone is not working for everyone to improve, then it's not really working. Like, I don't think that's a healthy culture to have. And I don't think that's what's best for the growth and the development of everybody as a whole. So I do a lot of that, like really looking at the gym as a whole, not just individual members.
yeah, no, I think, and that's important too, and like just creating like the team environment and team atmosphere, and you want people to feel welcome and feel like they belong. So,
For
so yeah,
sure.
no, this has been great. It's been awesome, kind of sharing some stories about our jiu-jitsu gyms. Anyone that's watching this, make sure if you're ever in PEI to check out West River Jiu-Jitsu. Follow West River Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram and on social media, and of course follow me if you're watching this, Presley BJJ. Thanks a lot, Madeline, for joining me. It's been great talking about jiu-jitsu. We could go for hours and hours,
Yeah, we could
obviously.
talk
But
jujitsu all day for sure.
yeah, no, it'd be fun to do this again sometime and to chat with some other gym owners too. If
Yeah, I love it.
anyone else that would like to talk about kind of like running a gym or like kind of different challenges that come with that, I think it would be beneficial for all gym owners just to kind of talk about some of the struggles and successes that people go through. So yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to say and wrapping up?
For sure, yeah. No, I just had a really good conversation with an old training partner of mine. We haven't gotten to train together for probably 10 years, but we were talking a lot about this philosophy of like, as jiu-jitsu is growing, I mean, there's room for everybody. It doesn't really have to be competitive between the gyms. Like we help each other out. Like I go visit lots of gyms. Like I think that's a really good thing about the culture, about the sport of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
And there's no reason that we shouldn't be helping each other out and like helping with, curriculum, helping with how are you dealing with this, how are you dealing with that? Because as the sport grows, it only helps all of us. So there's no reason for it to not be this way, I don't think. And certainly, I lean on my resources, my friends in the industry as well, quite heavily. And I really appreciated being able to come and train at your gym and have this chat with you. So it was great. Look forward to seeing you again. Hopefully next time you're over across the bridge. I'm the first stop over the bridge, so stop in at West River Jiu
yeah,
Jitsu. Love to have you.
yeah. I would love that sometime. That would be awesome. So yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate the time, and yeah, we'll talk again soon. Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
and thanks
Thanks, Josh.
everybody
Yep.
for tuning in.
Take care.
Have a good night.